Hey everybody, thanks for checking in with us. Today I'm talking about TPS from Burma. All right, let's get into it. First of all, I'm referring to the country as Burma. I realize that it's also known as Myanmar, but for our purposes we'll call it Burma today because that's what it's listed like in the USCIS or the Immigration Bulletin. All right? Okay, so the Secretary of Homeland Security announced on March 12th, just last week, that they have approved TPS for individuals from Burma. Okay? They've approved the program called TPS for individuals from Burma. So let's talk first about what TPS is. TPS means Temporary Protected Status. TPS, Temporary Protected Status. And it means that the individuals who apply for it and get approved will be considered to be lawfully in the United States. Now that serves two purposes legally. The first purpose is you get to stay here, and usually with TPS you also qualify for a work permit. Okay, so it's TPS followed by a work permit under a specially designated category. The other purpose that's really excellent for individuals is that TPS counts as a manner of admission. And that means that if you happen to have entered the United States illegally or in a manner that wasn't with a proper passport and visa, this would accord you that status, at least in the Ninth Circuit and the Sixth Circuit, and I can't remember another circuit as well. You're going to have to ask your lawyer that question. Okay, what is TPS? TPS is a program. It's a program that the United States government has used traditionally to recognize that individuals from specific areas of the world cannot feel safe in their home country or cannot return to their home country. Okay, so TPS, El Salvador has TPS. Syria has TPS. Recently, Venezuela was granted TPS. Venezuelans were granted TPS. These are countries where, if you know the history of what happened, there were either incidents or violence or general widespread economic problems that the individuals are fleeing or running away from that country. So TPS is exactly what it says. It's a temporary program. And this is part that you need to keep in mind and think about before you sign on for a TPS program. I'm going to talk about that in a little bit more. All right, TPS for Burma. The announcement came out last week, and it was very, very sparse. It basically said, based upon the military coup and the widespread persecution and abuse to the citizens, that the government felt that this program was necessary. Now, they said that to qualify for TPS, you must show continued presence in the United States since March 11th, 2021. Now, typically TPS has more qualifications than just a date, okay? And I'm going to go over those with you. They announced that we're going to give you that detailed information further on in the Federal Register. So while the government has not told us yet what those details are, we know from other programs what they're generally going to be. So here we go. Number one, TPS is generally for individuals who have 2 or less misdemeanors. Now that starts way back in 1999 on the El Salvador Hurricane Mitch TPS. You had to have 2 or less misdemeanors, okay? Or I believe it's 1 misdemeanor. In other programs, we've seen very similar kind of laws. You can't have crimes. You can have traffic tickets, you can have driving without a license, some of these other things which might be an infraction, okay. But if you have an actual conviction, for example, for domestic violence, or an actual conviction for crimes such as robbery, theft, fraud, anything else, drug crimes, you would be disqualified, all right? What we generally see in the TPS programs, we see individuals with maybe 1 DUI still qualify, or 1 minor, very low level misdemeanor still qualify. So taking that information, we can go bring all that information forward to today and say, typically you need to be either crime-free or have something very, very minor. If you have some sort of conviction, you do need to bring that up and talk about that with your attorney, okay? That's one of the major hits. Aside from that, you're going to want to be able to show that you were in the United States, and oftentimes they've wanted to see people filing for asylum, okay? Now, we don't know yet if the Burmese TPS is going to require an asylum filing, and the reason is this situation is new and ongoing, and people aren't sure what's happening, okay? At this point, the Burmese TPS is a great program for people who feel unsafe or unsure, and are not really aware of what other program exists for them to stay in the United States. But this brings me to my final point, which is individuals in lawful status. And this is really the hardest part. The way the immigration system works in the United States is you need to have one lawful status, and you need to constantly move to the next lawful status without any gaps in between. A gap in between would say if you had an H-1B visa and then you stopped having an H-1B visa for 6 months or a year, and then you applied to be a student. Well, that gap in between disqualifies you from the next employment-based visa. These are non-immigrant visas that keep people in status. And most often we see the student visa going to an H-1B, sometimes to a J-1, sometimes on their way to a green card, okay? Those are your major employment visas. If you are currently in the United States in lawful status, my advice to you is to talk to an attorney. You need to speak to an attorney because you're not sure if you want to just give that up. Giving up lawful status to get TPS can be functional and can work, but it only works if you know what some of those limitations might be, or if you've actually shortchanged yourself and you're out of nothing. So what I would say to you is this. If you're a Burmese national in the United States and you're thinking about TPS, if you have entered and you are now out of status, you should 100% apply. If individuals are a Burmese national and they have no status in the United States, meaning they're out of status, they're an overstay, or an illegal entry, this is perfect for you. Get on the phone, call us, or call your attorney, okay? Individuals who have actual status from Burma but are afraid to go home, or perhaps see their families in jeopardy and feel like they're not going to be funded to go to school, or feel like they're going to lose the support of going to school, or feel like their job might be ending soon, or their H-1B might be ending soon, and feel some instability, you need to talk to an attorney to make the right choice on whether you should apply for TPS now, you can wait, or figure out what strategy is best for you. The TPS program in general tends to start and have some future end date. Right now, we've seen TPS continue on and on and on for Syrians, and we've seen it continue on and on and on for Salvadorans, and we've seen it also continue in other different categories like Haitians as well. So there is an element of the unknown. We don't know when the program is going to end. Keep in mind, it is granted by the president, given by the president, and I think if you turn back a couple months, you'll see that last president we had wanted to end TPS for almost every program. So there's a lot of things to consider with TPS. Keep those things in mind. And of course, give us a call. Very happy to help you. Stay safe out there.